The apocalypse has arrived. It has been a year since humanity lost the war against the demonic forces. Countless human lives have been mercilessly taken, leaving behind only a small surviving population. These remaining individuals have been subjected to a fate worse than death, as they are now being held captive and used as vessels to birth new monsters. Their minds and bodies irreversibly destroyed. The lone survivor of the resistance persisted in their battle against the demonic forces until the bitter end. Despite facing insurmountable odds and overwhelming loss, they fought on. In a fateful encounter with Tartarus, the demon lord and ruler of the underworld, the last of humanity was offered a chilling proposition. Tartarus claimed to sense the survivors' pain and offered to ease it, casting a powerful spell that slowed the flow of time, prolonging their conversation. Demon god Tartarus remembered the name of the last surviving human to be Zephyr, who had remarkably managed to agitate the demon god like no human had in ages. Despite the dire circumstances, Zephyr displayed unparalleled tenacity that impressed even Tartarus, who acknowledged and applauded the human's fortitude in the face of certain doom. Although many believe that fighting a losing battle is unwise, giving up out of fear of an opponent's tower is not a mark of wisdom, but of weakness. When the demon god encounters those who lack perseverance and succumb to their fear, his anger knows no bounds. To Tartarus, the trait of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds is a hallmark of strength and worthy of respect, while surrendering to fear is a sign of weakness and deserving of contempt. Zephyr, having once climbed to the pinnacle of the human world, must understand the power dynamics at play. Recognizing Zephyr's strength, the demon lord extended an offer to work together, using their combined power to conquer not only this small world but also the realms beyond, including the homes of the gods. Together, they could journey to other worlds, using the demon lord's strength and Zephyr's skill to vanquish all opposition and claim victory over the vast multiverse. When the demon lord offered Zephyr a chance to work with him, the human survivor questioned whether Tartarus truly wanted to accept him, despite his shattered body, which could never fully heal. Zephyr saw the offer as potentially beneficial. However, he couldn't shake the question of what the demon lord's true intentions were. Was the offer a genuine chance to survive and thrive, or was it simply a cruel game? With Tartarus wanting to watch Zephyr beg for his life, the uncertainty weighed heavily on Zephyr's mind, even as he considered the potential benefits of the demon lord's offer. As he pondered the demon lord's offer, Zephyr suddenly recalled a person who had once criticized his personality, but whom he had disregarded. This individual had placed an intriguing spell on him, which allowed him to channel a power beyond their realm. All Zephyr had to do was clench his hand, and his body would explode with an otherworldly force that could potentially rival even Tartarus's own power. And with that realization, Zephyr had his answer to the demon lord's offer. And then a massive explosion rocked the space around them. As Zephyr's power surged forth and caught the demon lord off guard, Tartarus's hand was severed in the blast, and his fury was palpable as he raged against the dishonor he felt at being betrayed by the human he had offered a chance to. For Zephyr, the fight was finally over, and with it came a crushing realization. Despite his best efforts, he had been unable to avenge those he had lost or save humanity as they had hoped. It had all been for naught, a bitter and futile struggle that had ended in explosive violence. In the aftermath of the explosion, Zephyr slowly opened his eyes, expecting to see the bleak, lifeless realm of the underworld. To his surprise, he found himself completely healed, his armor intact, and surrounded by towering statues of the gods. As he tried to make sense of his surroundings, he realized that he must have passed on to the afterlife. But where was he, exactly? Was this some kind of temple? His confusion only deepened as he took in the grandeur of his surroundings, and wondered what fate lay in store for him now. Time passed slowly, as Zephyr attempted to make sense of his surroundings. He then heard an angelic voice saying that he was not in the underworld, but rather at the lowest level of the pantheon, the realm of the gods themselves. And then, to his surprise, an angelic figure appeared before him. Instinctively, he reached for his sword, but to his dismay, he found that he was unable to summon it. Zephyr's surprise deepened as the angelic figure approached him. She identified herself as Mercedes, a high-level angel and representative of the gods. Mercedes seemed to sense Zephyr's confusion, and she quickly explained that he had in fact died. Ordinarily, he would have been sent directly to the underworld. But at the strong urging of 3 of the greatest gods, a decision had been made to send him back in time. Mercedes explained to Zephyr that the gods are willing to give him a second chance to alter the course of history, and that they have selected him because of his exceptional tenacity and strength. However, she also warned him that he would have to start from scratch and work his way back up to the top, as his powers and abilities would not carry over to the past. Zephyr couldn't believe what he was hearing. He wondered if this was just a dream or a hallucination brought on by the Demon Lord's towers. Zephyr asked Mercedes, the high-leveled angel, what the gods want from him in return for giving him a second chance to change the future. He couldn't believe that he was given this opportunity for free. There must be a catch. As people were dying in droves during a demon attack, Zephyr prayed fervently for the gods' help, only to receive silence in return. The gods had abandoned their world, refusing to answer prayers or accept sacrifices. To make matters worse, the clergy had lost their ability to borrow divine power, leaving the human armies vulnerable and helpless. It seemed that the gods had deemed their world unworthy of their attention and had abandoned it entirely, with no reason to help. Why would these calculating beings give Zephyr a chance to survive for free? The angel listened to Zephyr's answers and replied that she truly understood him. She went on to assure him that she could share what the gods were thinking at that moment. They wanted Zephyr to show them something even more interesting. Zephyr was stunned by what he heard. The gods who had been watching over him were filled with sorrow at the outcome. It was rare to see a human with such tenacity, fighting until the bitter end when faced with the destruction of the world. And for the 5 years he had battled against the armies of demons, his unwavering determination was truly worth watching. Many of the gods regretted that his world had succumbed to the forces of evil within such a short amount of time. However, Zephyr's anger got the best of him, and he impulsively attacked the angel. He couldn't believe that the gods found his life situation merely interesting, and questioned whether the reason everyone fought with their lives was for the gods' entertainment. As if it was worth watching. Zephyr was outraged by the possibility that the gods saw his life as mere entertainment. He questioned their motives and asked if all humans were just sources of amusement for them. He couldn't believe that the gods would look down on humans with such a callous perspective. However, as he was questioning the gods, he was caught off guard when a massive foe came down on him from above, immobilizing him. The angel sternly reminded him that the gods were watching and he should show them more respect. The angel then approached him, clarifying that he had misunderstood the gods' intentions. The only thing that the gods are interested in is him, and they do not hold any interest in common species like humans. She explained that proving his self-worth is the only way for Zephyr to receive what he wants, and this applies to all species. Nothing in this world comes for free, and everything has a price. The angel continued explaining that there is one particular god who has been insistent on Zephyr's return, not for entertainment, but for a specific purpose. She showed Zephyr the demon god, who was furiously demanding to speak with the higher-ups. The reason? He was humiliated by taking a hit from a mere human, and he wanted revenge. The angel explained to Zephyr about the demon god Tartarus, who was known as the god of destruction and had already destroyed 10 worlds, including Zephyr's. He had never been defeated or damaged by any being until Zephyr dealt him a blow. The angel made it clear that Zephyr had shattered the demon god's pride, and now Tartarus wanted a rematch with him to regain his honor and achieve a complete victory. And now Zephyr was determined to give Tartarus what he wanted. He had nothing to lose anymore, and he realized that he had been given a second chance to change the future. If he had to fight the demon god again, he would do it. But this time, he would make sure it was a fight to the death. The angel initiated the transfer. That the exact arrival time is uncertain, allowing Zephyr ample time to recover his strength. As a symbol of their support, the gods have bestowed upon him the returner's privileges, which he can access upon his return. Although it is a divine opportunity, Zephyr is determined to seize this chance to exact revenge on the demon god Tartarus, as well as on all the gods who have treated him and his people as insignificant beings. With the coordinates generated, and the final confirmation from the constellation in dimensional interference complete, Zephyr commences his transfer to the designated location. Upon waking up, Zephyr noticed the slaves attempting to rouse him from his slumber. His attention was immediately drawn to the stigma on their bodies, and he realized that he had been transported back in time to when he himself was a slave in the temple 10 years ago. Meanwhile, one of the slaves threatened to harm Zephyr if he provoked him again, but Zephyr remained indifferent to the situation, not caring about the other slave's words or actions. While walking back, Zephyr bumped into a child who thanked him for saving him. However, Zephyr couldn't recall the incident as it had happened 10 years ago. It was then that he remembered what the angel had told him before his transfer. The returner's privilege. He could access it any time by saying, "Unlock privilege." And to his surprise, he doesn't expect that they will be giving him this kind of things. After spending a considerable amount of time in the mine cave, the other miners began to take notice of Zephyr's exceptional mining skills. They started to speculate that perhaps Zephyr had worked as a miner before coming to the mines, as they had never seen a rookie with such impressive speed and precision. The other miners couldn't help but wish that Zephyr was a part of their own team. Nevertheless, as Zephyr processed the information about his returner's perks, he couldn't believe that it was real. All the top-class skills, items, and abilities were flooding into his mind, all at once, and he was stunned that the gods would give away such things. As Zephyr was lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice the captain of the mines approaching him. Seeing Zephyr standing idle, assumed that he was slacking off on his first day. Without any warning, the captain raised his whip and struck Zephyr. However, to the captain's surprise, Zephyr caught the whip with his bare hands, stopping the captain's attack. Zephyr quickly apologized to the captain and promised to get back to work. As Zephyr returned to work, he couldn't help but ponder what had just happened. He was confused as to why the captain's whip seemed slow to him. After reflecting on his battle experience, he realized that his heightened senses and reflexes allowed him to perceive and react to things much faster than the average person. Moreover, his newly unlocked perk, the Wall of Ire, had drastically increased his defense, allowing him to completely ignore damage that was lower than his attack power. It was all thanks to this perk that he didn't even receive a scratch from the captain's whip. Not only that, but this skill also allowed him to not die easily. Although its conditions were a bit picky, it was a great skill if used correctly. And Zephyr was grateful for the gift from the gods. Zephyr was amazed that he had received a total of 9 perks from the gods. With his knowledge of the future and the additional perks, he knew that he would be able to regain his strength rapidly. After a long day of work, the mine managers would calculate each group's daily workload and rank them accordingly. As expected, Zephyr's group, Group F, came out on top, earning the coveted first place. The bullies' group came in second place. Much to their shock and confusion, they couldn't fathom how Zephyr's group managed to outperform them, and they started to feel threatened by Zephyr's presence. And according to the mining team's protocol, the supplies and compensation for the last place group's work will be divided among the first, second, and third place groups. After that, they will commence their prayers to the great goddess of light, Arya, and the miners start their praying exercises. However, Zephyr pays no attention to the ritual. The Temple of Arya is the largest religion in the continent, and also the biggest loan company. Many people here have lost their homes to monsters or were once adventurers rescued by the temple, becoming slaves to pay off their vast medical bills. Despite this, Zephyr already knew that he is not free to move around as he pleases because of the stigma attached to him. If he were to go outside the work territory without permission, his heart would stop and he would die immediately. He knows that he needs to quickly pay off his medical bills and regain his freedom. Only then can he proceed with his next plan. Zephyr is determined not to let the demon god Tartarus have his way again, and he's willing to take his revenge. Moreover, he is determined to protect Altair this time, no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, a temple believer made an announcement that anyone in need of items from the store or seeking consultation can come to this place. Zephyr visited the store again and was disappointed to see that the items were unreasonably expensive. Suddenly, the same kid he had bumped into before approached him and offered to buy him a drink. Zephyr was skeptical and asked if the kid even had any money. The kid replied that he had just received his payment, but he couldn't afford to buy Zephyr anything expensive. The kid insisted on buying Zephyr a drink, grateful that he protected him from the bullies and helped their group come in first place. He explained that their group usually consisted of weaker miners and they often came in last place This was the first time they had received any money. Zephyr then realized the reason why the kid was getting beaten up. If even one person in a group is unable to work due to injuries, the group will not be able to mine as much iron ore, and their rank will suffer. And with a sigh on his face, Zephyr gently declined the offer, telling the child that he would not take advantage of a young boy's kindness. He wished the child good luck and went on his way. Zephyr walked up to the store and asked the shopkeeper if they had any water of recovery. The shopkeeper looked at him skeptically, asking if he was new and if he even had the money to pay for it. The water of recovery was quite expensive, with a glass costing 1 gold and a bottle costing 4 golds. Despite the steep price, the shopkeeper suggested that if the pain was bearable, Zephyr should tough it out. Zephyr pulled out 1.5 gold coins and handed them to the shopkeeper. He then explained that he would take a loan for the remaining payment and inquired if the store had any forms for that purpose. The kid, who was still nearby, overheard their conversation and was shocked, telling Zephyr that he was crazy for taking a loan. The kid asked Zephyr if he knew how scary it is to go into debt. He explained that they are only getting paid 1 gold, which is half the price of the normal payment of 2 golds, and that the loan interest is really high. But Zephyr replied that he only needs to pay them back. Little did they know that the water of recovery, a popular item that recovers a small portion of one's health, had a hidden effect of increasing magic power if consumed in large quantities. Although drinking 10 bottles only increased magic power by a minuscule amount, making it not very cost-efficient. However, thanks to his perk, Zephyr didn't even need elixirs. He realized that he won't be able to earn a significant amount of money from the mines no matter how hard he worked, as he wouldn't be compensated for his efforts. Therefore, Zephyr needed to come up with a different plan to pay off his medical bills and regain his freedom. And now Zephyr reported to the captain that he had heard a monster cry inside the mines and suggested that they contact the hunter team. He offered to lead the team to the location where he had heard the monster cry. This was just the beginning of Zephyr's plan to earn money by exploring the dungeon. Monsters are creatures that are born from magical warps. Due to their hostile nature towards humans, they have caused a lot of damage. However, they also offer humans a second chance. The crystallization of magic within the bodies of monsters, known as magic stones, bones, and fur, are used as materials for items. Before they knew it, monsters had become a valuable resource that humans could not live without. This also means that dungeons have become the natural habitat for monsters. Although they are dangerous, they are also like treasure chests waiting to be discovered. The hunters were individuals who had been carefully selected for their combat skills and specialized knowledge of hunting monsters. In order to compensate for the danger they faced, they were given a higher base pay and offered incentives based on their progress. Meanwhile, Zephyr couldn't help but wonder why he had been chosen to work in the mines. Despite being a traveler, as Zephyr was contemplating his situation, the shopkeeper interrupted his thoughts and asked if he was even listening to him. He went on to explain that they couldn't keep giving Zephyr loans because of his low rank, and that he wouldn't be able to get a single penny more. Zephyr was surprised when a temple believer approached him with an opportunity to get a loan by selling his organs. The temple was in need of fresh organs for research purposes, and agreed to take Zephyr's organs the following week. He also requested that he could keep his organs as long as he repaid the loan. The temple believer accepted Zephyr's request and both parties were satisfied with the agreement. After receiving the payment, Zephyr headed straight to the store to purchase more potions with the money. However, the shopkeeper's response to Zephyr's purchase was callous, stating that Zephyr can do what he wants with the potions because he might die anyway. The shopkeeper even callously mentioned that another customer was sold to the laboratory, implying a bleak outcome for those who get a loan from the temple believers. With his new potions, Zephyr was ready to embark on his mission. Just then, a hunter approached him and inquired if he was Zephyr, the guide for their expedition to locate the source of the monster's cry. The hunter introduced himself as Goth, the leader of the reconnaissance team, and the two are Dale and Marco. Zephyr acknowledged his role, admitting that he lacked night vision skills. However, he informed Goth that he possessed the ability to detect mana, and hoped that this skill would prove useful in their quest. Night vision is an essential ability that enables one to see in the dark. On the other hand, mana detection is the ability to spread mana across a wide field and heighten one's senses. These skills are crucial for navigating deep and dark dungeons without alerting monsters to one's presence. The leader wasted no time and asked if Zephyr was ready to proceed, instructing him to carry the load. One of their companions found Zephyr intriguing, pointing out that he was a miner with the ability to use mana, and jokingly suggesting that he might even awaken the entire dungeon. As Zephyr walked alongside them, he is checking them. Zephyr is familiar with the two, and recognizing at least one of them from a previous dungeon clearing mission. Zephyr recollected that he had been transferred out of the dungeon a month after they had successfully completed their mission. Zephyr realized that if things played out as before, the two of them would die in this dungeon. With this knowledge, Zephyr began to strategize on how he could utilize these individuals to his advantage. After hours of walking, they finally arrived at the entrance of the dungeon, where the waiting team greeted them and instructed them to extend their hands. The team attached a string of bracelets imbued with magical energy around their wrists. The purpose of these bracelets was to act as a safety measure. In the event that something happened to the team while inside the dungeon, the bracelets would snap on their own and send a distress signal to the waiting team's bracelets and then request backup from the base. However, since their team was only there for reconnaissance purposes, they were unlikely to need such measures as long as they remained alert. As Zephyr's group ventured deeper into the dungeon, low-level monsters started to emerge. But they were no match for the group's skills and were easily dispatched. The primary objective of the reconnaissance team was to survey the dungeon for monsters and gather vital information about the layout of the interior. This information would then be used to assemble a well-equipped attack squad capable of clearing the dungeon. This was the standard protocol for dungeon expeditions. The team leader observed that the monsters they had just defeated appeared to be the remnants of a defeated army from another breeding ground, located on the opposite side of the mine. Apparently, another hunting group had recently decimated their ranks, leaving only a handful of survivors. The leader then suggested that they will take over the dungeon themselves. Certainly, since the reconnaissance team consisted of hunters with combat skills, if they deemed the dungeon to be easy enough to handle, they would sometimes clear it themselves without waiting for a separate attack squad. One of the hunters spoke up, reminding the leader that their mission was only to gather information and not to make any risky decisions. He raised concerns about what they would do if they encountered a group of strong monsters inside, with only 3 hunters in their group. He also pointed out that they have a trash member, making it difficult to effectively fight as a team. Despite this, they agreed to hear the leader's plan before making a final decision. The leader instructed Zephyr to retrieve some hazelnut leaves and seeds from the bag, which they would crush and mix with the remnants of the kobolds they had killed. This would create the scent of a female kobold, which has a strong enough odor that it can be detected from a distance of over hundreds of meters. Their plan was to use this scent as bait and set a trap for the remaining kobolds. The leader boasted confidently that the plan would work as he had predicted. The other hunters were impressed with the well-thought-out plan and were curious about how the leader had prepared for it. Little did they know that the plan was actually taught to the leader by Zephyr himself. The leader Goth. During Zephyr's first life after he got transferred to be a hunter, they used to work together as a team, while Goth wanted to receive approval from the others. But he never had a chance to do so. Before the meeting, Zephyr took it upon himself to scout the area and explore the dungeon. He found that there were only small groups of remaining kobolds left. The leader was surprised when Zephyr shared his findings and asked him if he was that confident in his abilities. Zephyr then shared with the leader that before he came to the mines, he had been in charge of his own reconnaissance team. That's where he learned how to find ways to sneak around. He believed that they could take care of this dungeon using this method with the 4 of them working together. In the leader's mind, it would be foolish to pass up an opportunity like this to others. Despite the difficulty of finding hazelnut, Zephyr seems to be skilled at preparation and hunting monsters. The leader appreciates how Zephyr is trying to give him credit for the plan. With the leader's managerial authority, all it takes is one word to the Human Resources Department to move Zephyr to the hunter team, which is likely what Zephyr wants. Unfortunately, despite Zephyr's impressive skills and efforts, the leader was not willing to accept his request to be moved to the hunter team. that based only on clearing a kobold dungeon. Meanwhile, they seemed to have taken care of most of the kobolds quite easily. However, the downside was that the magic stones they obtained were of poor quality, given that they came from kobolds. But as they were exploring further, they stumbled upon something unexpected. They discovered what appeared to be the remains of kobold bones scattered on the ground. As they were inspecting the bones, suddenly one of them was attacked and thrown over to the other side of the wall. Marco quickly commanded everyone to get behind him, assuming that their work was almost done, and not expecting an ambush. But he knew that as long as they could defend themselves and find a way out, they would be fine. He conjured a mana shield, strong enough to withstand even an attack from an orc chief. However, to his surprise, the shield was easily shattered by the monster tail's attack. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the dungeon where the waiting team was stationed, they were shocked to see all three of their bracelets snap simultaneously. They were confused about what's happening and wondered if the reconnaissance team were in danger. Their leader was surprised when he saw Zephyr blocking the monster's tail attack, but even with the Wool of Iron perk, he couldn't block all the damage. This monster shouldn't even be 1 year old. Yet it displayed an enormous strength. It was a predator. The predator species is known for using its pheromones to deceive other monsters into believing it's part of their species, only to consume the unsuspecting creatures once it reaches adulthood. This deceptive tactic allows the predator to cause chaos and destruction among other monsters. But despite the terror shown by the predator, Zephyr calmly picked up the spear with a smile on his face. He told the monster that he would grant its one wish, and that was how it wanted to die.